A death row inmate in Nigeria was doing TikTok live streams and raking in money through donations from his cell, all while waiting to be executed for the murder of a university student. Hi, I'm Luman, and in today's video we're going to be talking about Elijah Oyibode, a man who somehow turned a Nigerian prison cell into a small social media business while serving a death sentence. Back in December 2016, Rofia Tatibisi, a final year student at Osun State University, was standing in the roadside waiting for a ride to go to Osogbo, a city in Nigeria. After waiting there for a few minutes, Elijah Oyibode, who worked as a commercial driver, pulled up and offered to take her. Since that was exactly what she was waiting for, she got into his vehicle expecting him to drive her into the city. Instead, Elijah took her to a ritual site where he performed spells and murdered her as part of a human sacrifice. Now, if you're not familiar, in Nigeria there's a thing people call money rituals. Basically, some people believe that if they kill a young woman who has never given birth and then use their blood and body parts in a ceremony, it will somehow make them rich and successful. Needless to say, I don't think it worked particularly well for him, considering that he's currently behind bars and waiting to be executed. The whole ritual killing idea is derived from Yoruba, a traditional Nigerian religion. Yoruba practices can involve animal sacrifices along with plants, herbs, and other objects that are used to cast rituals or spells. Human sacrifices are not a normal part of the religion, but the general idea is that blood, body parts, and rituals can be used to gain power or change someone's fortune. Over time, some people have started taking it a little bit further, and Nigeria has seen a number of actual ritual killings, especially among younger men trying to get money fast, like the case we're talking about today. As the story goes, Elijah was not doing all of this by himself. He had an accomplice called Jalili Raji, who was a herbalist and apparently the one interested in carrying out the ritual. According to one of the statements, Jalili offered him 10,000 naira, which is only around $7, to bring him a woman they could kill. He also gave Elijah an amulet and told him that if he touched a woman with it, she would become hypnotized and stop resisting him. Of course, Elijah believed him, and according to him, he used the amulet on the girl while she was putting the luggage into the car, and after getting her to the location they wanted to go, they took her out and between the two of them, raped her before killing her. The medical records show she died from cardiac arrest caused by strangulation. At first, Elijah tried giving investigators a completely different story where supposedly Rofia had entered his car because she was a prostitute, and after having sex with him, just died for no reason. I guess she strangled herself. And as you can imagine, the court did not buy that, and Justice S.O. Falola found Elijah and Jalili guilty of conspiracy and murder, and in April 2020, both of the men were sentenced to death by hanging. And that should have been the end of the story. Two guys committed a horrific crime, get sentenced to death, and sit in prison until the state gives them their punishment. But this is where things get weird, because sometime in early 2026, Elijah got a hold of a smartphone, opened a TikTok, and started going live. He had at least 2 TikTok accounts, the main one being Ayola Oluwafu, and through live streams and gifts from viewers, the account hit level 20. Now, if you don't know what that means because you don't use TikTok, effectively, your account has a level based on how much money you make, and level 20 works out to roughly $290, which might not sound like a lot, but I'll remind you that this story takes place in Nigeria. Prisoners get a total allowance of 80 cents a day, and the national minimum wage is about $50 a month. So relative to everyone around him, he was actually doing pretty well. Now, he also had another account under a different name, but instead of just making up a random first name, last name, and using a random stock photo for the avatar, he created a fake profile using the name and photo of a TikTok host and activist called Omolola Awoyeli. This guy has such a high IQ that the person he decided to impersonate was a woman who looks and sounds absolutely nothing like him. And because she looked nothing like him, people obviously noticed right away and told the real person, who started investigating and eventually confronted him live on stream. When she did that, he admitted it and basically said, "Yeah, I used your identity," and then somehow managed to make her think that he was wrongfully convicted and that he was a poor, innocent man that was thrown in jail for no reason. And because she's not much smarter than he is, she actually believed him and tried getting him legal support, including paying for a lawyer. That was until she got her hands on the actual court documents. Once she saw what he had done and the fact that there was a ton of evidence that he had actually committed those crimes, she immediately went back on his stream, called him out, and then dropped all the legal help she was giving him. To which Elijah responded in the most calm and reasonable way possible, by sending her death threats. And at this point, you might be wondering how he got a phone to do his live streams to begin with. Well, don't worry, Elijah explained it all on stream. When asked, he said that some prisoners have 2 or 3 phones each, and that Facebook and TikTok are full of inmates who simply hide the background so that people can't tell where they are. They use normal looking backgrounds during video calls and avoid showing anything that will reveal that they are inside a prison. He then explained that the officers bring phones inside and smuggle them through the gates, and if another officer finds a phone later on, he confiscates it and demands money to give it back. So effectively, one guard gets paid to bring the illegal phone in, and another one gets paid to give it back after pretending to enforce the rules. And the inmate just keeps the phone because that's the only way they can get money to bribe the guards with. In other words, the way you get the phone in is through corruption. You give the guards a little money and then they'll let you do whatever the hell you want. And people say the American prison system is bad, like Jesus Christ. That's also how he can get the money out, by the way, because the guards are in on it. And apparently it's not just phones. He said drugs come in the same way. Inmates buy a bunch and then resell them. They just have to give the guards a little cut of the profits. So all things considered, live streaming from death row seems relatively tame. Apparently some of those guys are drug trafficking from jail. The corruption is so bad that there are even death row inmates who get escorted out by guards to quote-unquote supervise hotels. And while they're out, they can meet family and people they met online, primarily women. All of this finally became public because the Nigerian Tribune investigated Elijah's TikTok accounts. They monitored his live streams, spoke to Omolola, obtained the court documents, and brought their findings to both TikTok and the Nigerian Correctional Service. And as a result, the prison was forced to respond. Spokesperson Jane Osuji said there are always a few bad eggs and that they have disciplined over 1,400 officers for various kinds of misconduct. Side note, having to discipline over 1,400 officers is not the flex she thinks it is. That's not a few bad eggs, that's the whole fucking egg factory. But anyways, she goes on to say that they do searches and check CCTV to catch misconduct. Then she tells the public to stop sending money or gifts because it defeats the whole point of correction. And are you serious? How about you just don't let them have phones in the first place? If they don't have phones, people can't send them money. Also, you're talking like the people watching even though they're dealing with criminals. Nothing stops these guys from pretending to be someone else and making money in the exact same way Elijah did with his second account. I bet a lot of them are doing it right now, and people don't even know who they are. And because apparently this just keeps happening, the Correctional Service actually announced in May that they had destroyed 1,167 phones confiscated from prisoners around the country. But Nigeria has almost 82,000 inmates, so that makes roughly one phone confiscated for every 70 prisoners. And according to Elijah, some inmates have 2 or 3 phones by themselves. So if what he's saying is even remotely accurate, destroying only 1,000 devices would barely make a difference, especially when the officers keep bringing more phones in. This is obviously something they do in the background to make money, and then they do some internet post or something to pretend like they're actually doing their jobs. And TikTok was not much better. The company claimed that it had removed more than 4 million videos in Nigeria and interrupted over 86,000 live streams for violating its rules. And those numbers sound really big until you realize that a convicted murderer was apparently able to livestream from death row for months while openly saying that he was in prison getting money from viewers and they did nothing. So either their automated system somehow missed the most obvious prison livestream imaginable, or it did not consider a death row inmate secretly monetizing an illegal phone important enough to stop. It was only after journalists gathered evidence and put the story directly in front of them that the account actually disappeared. As of making this video, the accounts were taken down. Boy Elijah and most of the officers involved have not received any punishment, so unless something changes, this is probably the end of the story. Elijah will probably get another phone and this time use a less obvious name, continuing to make money from a prison cell. And as much as that sucks, corruption is not something that's fixed in 1 or 2 days. I don't even think they want to get rid of the corruption, because all the people with power are the ones making money from it, so why in the world would they get rid of their source of income? Anyways, that's all I wanted to talk about. If you enjoyed the video, please give me a like and subscribe. That really helps out small channels like this one. Thank you for watching this far and have a nice day.